be simple, it's a gift. To be free, 'tis a gift. To come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, it will be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we will not be ashamed to tune. It will be our delight. By turning, we all come round right.
Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. We're a church of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, believers in God, mystery, nature, or love, queer and trans folks, immigrants and refugees, all of who we are and are becoming. We are all held sacred here in this space. I'm Heather Bingy Hansen, serving as your worship associate today, and we're grateful to have special returning guests, Larry McDonough and Richard Terrell. They will be providing reflections on interdependence through poetry and music. It'll truly be a unique and wonderful service. Larry and David have been performing at UU churches for over 20 years, and they enjoy very much so playing with the Larry McDonough Quartet. Richard is a Minnesota Book Award-winning poet and professor emeritus from MSU Mankato. Larry is a jazz singer, a jazz pianist, a singer, and a composer for over 50 years. When he's not doing that, he is a nonprofit attorney working with disadvantaged populations. After the service, you'll be able to connect with them downstairs. They'll have a table set up for you to ask questions, and they'll also have CDs and books for sale. So welcome to visitors, newcomers, and those online. We're glad you're here. There's a preschool playroom open for young ones just past the lobby, and groups for kids following the chalice lighting today. After the service, join us in the Commons for refreshments and fellowship, where you can find many ways to connect to our community. Most Sundays, our offering goes out to support nonprofits and justice work in the community. However, once a month, the collection stays in-house as a more flexible way for folks to give as they are able. As you can give us the plates pass. Having some problems with alliteration today. Every Wednesday, join us for weekly suppers and programs, including childcare and an always open choir rehearsal. This week is a special healing hot dish meal highlighting mental health awareness. We are in need of 2 more hot dishes. So if any of you have a special family recipe you want to share, you can talk to the office and sign up for that. We'll also have special guests speaking about the work of the Warming Center here in Rochester that addresses homelessness throughout the community. Supper will be at 5:30 and followed by choir and chat. All are welcome. And finally, save the date for the 1866 social fundraiser hosted by the Clara Barton Guild. It'll be on Saturday, May 10th, and we'll be celebrating our founding year, and that will include an old-time ice cream social, a scavenger hunt for kids, displays of our history, and a free will offering. All are welcome, and you can sign up to donate pies for the raffle today in the lobby. We hope to see you there. So now let us enter into our time of worship with these words from our minister in the 1870s, the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. In a moment, the music will call us back, but before we sing, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and greet those around you. Okay. No.
I'd like to invite the children forward to help me light the chalice today. So if you want to come up and stand on the step. Turn around. Say hi. All right. We're going to use the children's chalice lighting words. Look that way. Ready? I'm gonna use my big voice instead of the microphone. This is the Unitarian Universalist Church. This is the Church of the Flaming Chalice. This is the Church of the Open Mind. This is the Church of the Loving Heart, where friends come together and share. So since this is a different service today, the children are able to come down or they're able to stay up if they want to come down a little bit later. But while we're walking out, the ushers will now be passing the plates to receive the offering.
Morning. Our service today much of it is drawn from this poetry anthology called The World Has Need of You, Poems for Connection. And the first poem, I'd like to read 3 short poems. I've divided, after reading the anthology and looking at some of my own work, into 3 types of interdependence. Interdependence between 2 people, interdependence between a person and the natural world, and interdependence among groups of people. So the first category is just 2 people. I have 3 very short poems. The first is about the relationship of a writer to a reader, but I think the words that Chase Twitchell write could apply to almost any 2 people, including here. You, reader, as I imagine you, why is it awkward to acknowledge each other's presence here? Who says we can't meet in public, can't stop and sit together on a bench and watch the dogs go by? As a child, I looked for you in books and sometimes sensed you reading what I was reading. Even as a child, I knew you would someday come to this place to meet me. And a second short poem, this by W.S. Merwin, about the interdependence between parent and child, in this case a mother and son. It's called Rain Light. All day the stars watch from long ago. My mother said, I am going now. When you are alone, you will be all right. Whether or not you know, you will know. Look at the old house in the dawn rain. All the flowers are forms of water. The sun reminds them through a white cloud, touches the patchwork spread on the hill, the washed colors of the afterlife that lived there long before you were born. See how they wake without a question, even though the whole world is burning. The assurance of the mother to the son, I am going now. When you are alone, you will be all right. Whether you know it or not, you're going to be all right, even though the whole world is burning. We need to hear that and hope that it's true. And finally, a very short poem, David Budbill, where he writes of his connection with another writer, the Japanese haiku master Kobayashi Issa. What Issa heard. 200 years ago, Issa heard the morning birds singing sutras to this suffering world. I heard them too this morning, which must mean, since we will always have a suffering world, we must also always have a song.
Good morning. We're going to do a couple of pieces that symbolize interdependence between two people. The first is called Glorious Step. It's by the bassist and composer Scott LaFaro, and he's most well known from playing in the Bill Evans Trio in the late 50s and early 60s. And he and Bill were just very, very close, so that when Scott died unexpectedly at the age of 25, it really darkened Bill for a long time. He often played this Scott LaFaro composition, Glorious Step, when they were together, but also when they were apart, maybe to stay connected. LaFaro was such an interesting composer. If you're interested in counting bars, this is all in 5-bar phrases, which is kind of unusual. You all are so quiet.
Yeah. We're used to people making noise.
Yeah,
You don't have
that's okay. We weren't hawking for applause.
to. Yeah. Some, buy a drink or,
Yeah. Some of the great recordings of jazz from the 50s and 60s are live recordings, and you can hear conversation and glasses tinking in the background. And our latest CD is also a live recording, and it's kind of funny because at one point I think there's an espresso machine going off, and then shaking a drink and stuff like that. So in my view, it kind of makes things more real. The next piece we're going to do is As Time Goes By. A lot of you may know it from the movie Casablanca. But for interdependence of two people, I think of Dexter Gordon and Herbie Hancock. They were both in the movie Round Midnight in the 80s, and they really were a pair. And so this is our version of their version.
and
As
also, of
Time
course,
Goes By.
Rick and Ilsa.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
the
Well,
movie.
when I think of Casablanca, I actually think of Rick and Louie, because I think it's actually the story about
The
them.
beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're dating ourselves.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. I invite you to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. It's our time to pause amidst the busyness of our lives, to slow down enough to consider the beauty that is here all around us, and to open a space for listening and love. Here we honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Paula Horner, serving as our caring coordinator, arranging care for our members and friends in need for the last 2 weeks. Jean Hansen will take over tomorrow for the next 2, and we thank her for that. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. And life can be challenging. We could all use some extra support with what life throws at us. And if you are experiencing those challenges in your life, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. If you need additional care or personal pastoral care, please reach out to Reverend Luke, Reverend Ruth, or myself. Today's flowers are shared by Karen Tarara in honor of her 40th birthday today. May the joy that she has spread in the past year come back to her. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because all people here have value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing sadness, illness, or loneliness. May the strength and love in our congregation help guide you. We revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. This morning, we hold in our hearts Patricio Alaman. Patricio's younger brother, Roberto, died on Monday, April 24th, in Ecuador following a short illness. They will travel to Ecuador in order to be with family and return in early May. We send strength to them, and may Roberto's spirit remain with them and all who knew him. And we celebrate with member Michael and Mary Hamilton, right back there in the last row, as they celebrated their wedding here last Saturday, officiated by Reverend Luke. Yay! Very exciting. We send them love and blessings for this new union. And an update from Laurel and Darren Podolsky-Smith as they cross the 300-mile mark on their literal, physical, spiritual journey. They report that they are healthy and well and enjoying the daily adventures of the St. James Camino. They are more than halfway through the 500-mile trek to Santiago de Compostela. I don't know if I said that right, but the route is well supported. This is from Laurel. The route is well supported. The scenery is beautiful and fascinating, even when it isn't. We have each other, and the only danger is 80s soundtracks in cafes that get stuck in our heads. We think of you often. You're with us in our hearts, and we'll see you soon. And we continue to send them love and safety on their journey. Cards of support and well wishes are welcome for all. The list that is compiled weekly contains several members and friends of the church who are experiencing sadness or celebration, and is posted in the entryway of the church as well as through a link in your e-news. We provide cards and postage and welcome you to leave those cards near the basket for mailing. So now in this space, settle in and breathe deep the breath of life. Feel below you the earth and its ancient turning, and above you the sky and the stars shining with their ancient light, holding you in this space, yourself made of earth and stars. Sit deeply here in this community of love and justice, hope and grace. Know that here you are named and you are known as beloved. I invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, source of love, God of many names and beyond all naming, may we know tender shelter and healing blessing when we are called to stand in the place of pain. May the places of darkness within us be surprised by light. May we be granted wisdom to avoid false resistance. And when suffering knocks on the door of life, may we be able to glimpse its hidden gift. May we be able to see the fruits of suffering, May memory bless and shelter us with the hard-earned light of past turmoil, to remind us that we have survived before, and though the darkness is now deep, we will soon see approaching light. May this give us confidence and trust. May a window of light always surprise us. May the grace of transfiguration heal our wounds. It is with deep sadness that we share the news that church member Steve Smith died on Monday, April 21st at home. He was surrounded by his beloved family and held in much care over these many months. He leaves a legacy of care in his years as an endocrinologist for Mayo Clinic and as a dear husband, father, and friend. Details will be forthcoming for memorial service here in May. We hold Steve's wife, Lynn, children Chip, Meredith and Sarah, and their families in our hearts during these tender days. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. We hold in our hearts all those who suffer in mind, body, or spirit. I invite you to bring the names you are holding in your heart this day, in joy or sorrow, celebration or concern, and silently or aloud now in this time to speak their names. For all those names spoken and unspoken, may we be held in love and grace. These words of meditation this morning come from Annie Forrester. Let us learn peace. Peace is more than the absence of worry. It is the creation of safe havens for all. It is the building of security for everyone. It is the forgiveness of self as well as the one who would harm you. Let us seek contentment. Let us learn peace. Peace is more than the absence of discordance. It is the intent listening to diverse points of view. It is the intentional speaking of all voices, one at a time. It is the tension within silence that welcomes all thoughts. Let us seek harmony. Let us learn peace. Peace is more than the absence of tension. It is studying the hard lesson of letting go. It is breathing through the pain into tranquility. It is forming friendship out of enemy. Let us seek serenity. Let us learn peace. Peace is much more than the absence of war. It is observing the promised truce when anger would say no. It is finding the just compromise when the ego would say, my way. It is striving for reconciliation when the heart would say, revenge. Let us seek amity for all the earth. Let us learn peace. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
So I suppose you all thought you could just kind of sit here and listen and not have to really participate, but you're wrong. If you look in your program, there's a little hymn here, and we'd like you to sing along with it. The backstory is I've written a number of pieces working with kids with special needs, and they would write some melody fragments, and I would turn them into pieces. And I was including my daughter Rosie, a Rose for Two that we did earlier. She wrote part of that. And this little kid, Ellie, with a lot of coaxing, this is all she gave me. I was like, okay. So that sat for a while on the piano until I realized if I took that four-note phrase and turned it into 5 notes, I could keep repeating the 4 notes and maybe nobody would notice until I just told you. But it makes it really easy to sing because it's only 4 notes. And then Richard wrote some really nice lyrics to it, and so it's a hymn that we've done a lot of times at Unitarian congregations. So what we'll do here is we'll play you the melody once, and then we'll have you sing the first verse, And then because we're jazzers, we can't quite leave it alone, so then we'll noodle around a little bit, and then I'll bring you back in for the last verse. Okay, you game? Okay.
My second category is interdependence or dependence between a person and nature or the natural world. I'm going to read a poem of my own from my collection, Coming Late to Rachmaninoff, and it's called November. And I guess the idea behind it may be that if you can find beauty in November around here, you can find beauty anywhere. So, okay. November. A scent is rising from the November fields, a mixture of rain and leaf mold, a dissipating cloud that brings joy. Between clumps of hemlocks, the ditches are full of dead hopes of speechless mice. A voice of love recites its memory of green language at the collar and neckline of autumn. The hearts of stones gleam like dulled silver, and the squirrels pout in the cottonwoods, sick with distortion and hurry, joining the dying and their faint colors. The joy here cannot be detected by science or intuited by phony mystics drunk on pay near the wharves where the tourists come in. But such a love exists as sure as this season moves blow by blow toward winter in the chilling pools. And then this one, the title poem of this anthology from Copper Canyon Press, The World Has Need of You by Ellen Bass. And it starts with an epigraph from the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke. And Rilke writes, "Everything here seems to need us. The world has need of you. I can hardly imagine it as I walk to the lighthouse, feeling the ancient prayer of my arms swinging in counterpoint to my feet. Here I am, suspended between the sidewalk and twilight, the sky dimming so fast it seems alive. What if you felt the invisible tug between you and everything? A boy on a bicycle rides by, his white shirt open, flaring behind him like wings. It's a hard time to be human. We know too much and too little. Does the breeze need us? The cliffs? The gulls? If you've managed to do one good thing, the ocean doesn't care. But when Newton's apple fell toward the earth, ever so slightly, fell toward the apple." A little bit of the new physics, I think, at the end there.
Yeah, so my contribution to in a relationship with the world is that with climate change, I seem to have allergies year-round, including now. So if my voice is a little raw, that's just the allergies talking. This is a great Michel Legrand piece called You Must Believe in Spring, and spring is in the title, but I think it really has more to do with having faith that things that you know will happen, you kind of are still hoping they'll happen. And like, you must believe in spring because we all know it's going to happen, but there are times in the winter where we're wondering, I don't know about this. So this is You Must Believe in Spring. A little water first. When lonely feelings chill the meadows of your mind, just think if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Beneath the deepest snows, the secret of a rose is merely that it knows you must believe in spring. Just as a tree is sure its leaves will reappear, it knows its emptiness at just a time of year. The frozen mountain dreams of April's melting streams, how crystal clear it seems. You must believe in spring. You must believe in love and trust it's on its way. Just as a sleeping rose awaits the kiss of May, so in a world of snow, of things that come and go, where what you think you know, you can't be certain of, you must believe in spring and love. You must believe in love and trust it's on its way. Just as a sleeping rose awaits a kiss of May, so in a world of snow, of things that come and go, where what you think you know, you can't be certain of, you must believe in spring and love. This will be pretty brief. I wrote this piece based on a river in northern Wisconsin called the Namakagon, and my vision is if Antonio Carlos Jobim had been floating down the river, he might have written something like this.
interdependence among a group of people. And I've chosen a couple poems that where there's strangers who come together more or less by chance. And this verse is by Richard Jones, and it's called Rest. These are narrative poems, so they're a little longer, but they tell a story. So, it's so late I could cut my lights and drive the next 50 miles of empty interstate by starlight, flying along in a dream. Countryside alive with shapes and shadows, but exit ramps lined with 18-wheelers and truckers sleeping in their cabs make me consider pulling into a rest stop and closing my eyes. I've done it in the past, parking next to a family sleeping in a Chevy, mom and dad up front, 3 kids in the back, the windows slightly misted by the sleeper's breath. But instead of resting, I'd smoke a cigarette, play the radio low, and keep watch over the wayfarers in the car next to me. A strange paternal concern and compassion for their well-being rising up inside me. This was before I had children of my own and first felt the sharp edge of love and anxiety whenever I tiptoed into darkened rooms of sleep to study the peaceful faces of my beloved darlings. Now, on lonely nights like this, the fatherly feelings are so strong, the snoring truckers are lucky I'm not standing on their running board, tapping on the window asking, "Is everything okay?" But it is. Everything's fine. The trucks are all together, sleeping on the gravel shoulders of exit ramps. And the crowded rest stop I'm driving by is a perfect oasis in the moonlight. The way I see it, I've got a second wind and an all-night country station on the radio. Nothing for me to do on this road but drive and give thanks. I'll be home by dawn. We should just go right to the music. Yeah, let's do the music. Let's do the first one. We know Unitarians have to have their coffee, and I'm running a little short myself, so we'll be there.
Yeah, so getting back to Casablanca, we're going to play the French national anthem, which is prominent in the movie, and I think it's one of the more patriotic musical interludes in a movie where the occupying Nazis start singing the German national anthem, and the French bar goers sing the French national anthem and essentially outsing the Nazis, and then the Nazis have to sit down. And it's kind of a pivotal point in the movie where you start to get kind of an impression that maybe Rick actually cares more about the outside world than he lets on. So this is our version of it.
one time, another time that strangers come together, it seems to me, is New Year's Eve. And so we picked, Larry has an arrangement of Auld Lang Syne. And I noticed in the Robert Burns poem, it's just, I went and read it, it's just one guy talking to another guy. But if you think about it, what we think about Auld Lang Syne, we think of crowds of people all happy together. So interdependence among people. Here's Larry's version of Auld Lang Syne.
And you can just flash the lights a couple times when you need us to stop, because this is what they do in the bars. So.
Thank you so much. We're going to close today with words by Marge Piercy. Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot tell always by looking what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections, create real nodes, build real houses. Live a life you can endure. Make love that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in, a thicket and bramble wilderness to the outside, but to us interconnected with rabbit runs and lairs. Live as if you like yourself, and it may happen. Reach out, keep reaching out, keep bringing in. This is how we're going to live for a long time, not always, for every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes. Maybe so.
Stick around or not?